Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Standing in the Rain. I started off with my walk, as I do every morning. I was walking in a forest not far from my farmhouse, walking my husky, starting off down a path I had not been down before. Walking down, I had noticed that it had become more foggy, and my dog had become more tense, when I saw a little boy by a steep hill, hiding behind a tree. When I approached him, he vanished behind the tree. I didn't think much of it, so I continued with my day. Later that night, I noticed the sense of being watched from afar. I tossed and turned almost all night. The rain was heavier than it had been the other night. When I woke up, I could only remember a dream about laughing children. I couldn't see anything though when I went for my walk. I saw the little boy again. This time, I had gotten a good view of what he looked like. He was wearing shorts, a blue tee, no shoes, and black hair. Weirdest feature was that his eyes were black. This time the boy was by a lake. He looked as if he wanted to jump in. I approached him and said, "Hey, be careful. The lake is very deep." He looked at me for a quick second and then said, "Daddy," and then disappeared. I walked home, starting to feel scared and confused about what was happening. The night I found that I couldn't see. The boy's words had me scared enough. I again had the feeling of being watched from outside. I got up and looked out the window to see the little boy standing by a tree. I opened the window and called out to him, "What are you doing?" He just looked at me and walked off. Soon, I heard little thumping noises coming from my attic, and weird sounds coming from below me. I soon heard the slight laughter of the little boy, or what I think was him. I stayed awake that night. I invited over my friend to see it with me. We were walking and started to notice it was getting dark. The fog made it quite hard to see. We finally found the little boy who was sitting on a log. When he saw us, he ran into the forest. My friend walked faster to see, but as fast as he was there, he was gone. The next few nights I had nightmares about an older-looking man, speaking in languages I had never heard of before, or sometimes repeating words. It drove me into being an insomniac. I saw the boy very little after the night that he stood outside my gates. One night I got lost in the woods and managed to make it back to my farm, or at least a few miles away. A small farm shed that carried a bed by an abandoned farm came to my aid. When I got inside, there were blood stains on the walls, and the bed seemed fairly ripped. There were no door windows. Lightning struck, and when I looked to the door, the same man whom I had seen in my dreams sat there, his face mangled and his yellow shirt stained with blood. My heart beated as the rain fell, making background noises, and he said one thing, "Where is my son?" The second story, Don't be so afraid of the dark. I'm going to start out by saying this is probably something I should apologize for. I should, but I'm not going to. My reasons for this are justified, and you'll probably agree with me too once you've read what I have to say. Now don't roll your eyes and assume this is another story where I'm passing along the monster from my own head into yours. It's really very simple. I am getting very tired. I've been awake the last few days and I need to go to sleep. And in order to get to sleep, I have to explain something to you. Not some vague, undefined you, but you, the person reading this story, the very literal and very real you. I need your help, and you're going to help me by continuing to read this. I've been giving some thought to monster stories, and stumbled across something that I find interesting. What are arguably the most common themes in monster stories? Darkness and light. The monsters find you in the darkness. They lurk in the darkness. They live and breathe in the darkness. The darkness is their element. It allows them to hunt us down. Sure, most of these stories are just jokes and scary stories written for the sake of reading in the dark. But a few of them are real. You never hear how real, because when things go bad, there's no one to tell us about it. You expect a victim of the Slender Man to escape and conveniently come back here to warn us all. You think the police are going to report supernatural causes when they find a body torn apart when there are a party of bears in the woods. The only way to know which stories are real are to get caught up in their retellings. It happens. This I promise you. Then there's the light, the escape route, the safe place, the weapon to fight back the evil, the antithesis of the darkness. The light is the one place where the monsters can't get to us. Some may use light as a way to surprise or shock us. But no one gets killed by a Wendigo on a sunny afternoon. The light is safe, and there are infinite examples to support this. Take this website. The light letters distract us from the black abyss of the background. Don't dismiss this either. It may be easier to read white text on a black background, but if you're staring at the white letter, not looking into the background, and you don't have to read every story on this wiki to start seeing faces where there are none. I can't prove that things are looking out at you as you read this, but just take comfort knowing that if they were, you were looking at the white text instead. Do me a favor, and UNCU, or roll your legs, sit comfortably, lean in a little bit. You, Ray, still shaken from your last story. Maybe you're cold. You're not afraid. You just really like making yourself as small as possible as you read. Well, don't do that, trust me. You're safer if you're closer to the light of the screen. It's not just keeping the darkness at bay, but you'll see what I mean soon. And keep reading. So there's light and dark. You're wondering, what's the big deal? Am I going to tell you to reread the letters of each line for a quick scare? Don't let your eyes wander. I didn't write anything. This isn't that kind of story. This is the kind of story where I help you see a pattern. Humans are afraid of the dark for a reason. With the absence of light, we really pray they'll never see a threat coming. We sleep at night hoping that in the morning any danger will have passed us by. Not knowing means having no reason to be afraid. We're still vulnerable when we sleep, but awareness of a threat really makes the threat worse in my experience. Now think about this. There are not many stories in which a monster attacks someone you never knew about it. There are some, but none of them are true. But the true stories share a few common themes of their own. The monsters can only find you if you know about them, and the more you know about them, the more danger you will be in. When has there ever been an ancient scroll that struck you dead after reading the first line? You have to read the whole thing before you're in any danger. You're only stalked by a ghost after listening to their whispers and figuring out what they're saying. If you ignore them, they can only annoy you. The old doll only steals your soul after you've learned it about its gruesome origins. There are a million examples. The point is that knowing about the monster allows it to find you. It makes you a target. Now I got to thinking about this. Monsters are all denizens of the darkness. But what would it take for a monster to exist in light? It's not the dark that kills you. It's the fact that you can't see them coming, and it is very possible to be blinded by light. The rest to say, there can't be a monster that strikes you down the moment your eyes are blinded with sunspots after you, say, happen to stare at the bright flashing reflection of a fast-moving car, or see the reflection of the sun in a distant window, or stare at a light bulb. Monsters rarely attack from the side. And even from the back, they like it when you know they're there. They come from the front, so you can see their twisted form before you die. And for that, you have to be unable to see them. There's another common element. Monsters are fast, they can be slow when they want to, but they are generally very quick. It could be coincidence that so many are bony, thin and limber, or it could be an advantageous design. Fast monsters hunt, and fast if any monsters have to trap. If our light monster was real, it would have to be fast and difficult to see. Camouflage is easy in the dark, but in the daytime, what would a monster of the light look like? I felt that natural colors would be the most likely. Invisibility doesn't seem plausible, even by monster standards, and a chameleon effect wouldn't work at high speeds. If you got a good look at a light monster, I bet you would be tan, and very, very thin like a stick bug. Now you're probably not interested in my brainstorming, or maybe you are. I don't care which is true. I just need you to keep reading a little bit longer. You're not in danger, and nothing is on its way to your house. If it is, it's probably something you already did, not me. Trust me, we're nearly there and I'm very tired. There's one more major theme that monsters have in common. Think again to how they pick their prey. You have to know about them before they can be a threat to you. They are like normal predators, and they can't just sneak up on anyone. For this, we are lucky, even more so. We are lucky because we love to spread these stories around. It's not just fun. You are compelled to sit here and read these. There is a reason, deep down in the most basic part of your brain, that you come to read these stories. Here we must imagine a moth. One moth against a monster owl. When the owl needs to pick its food, it is only one moth to choose from. If the moth doesn't want to die, it has to find other moths to distract the owl. So the moth informs another moth of the monster owl, and in this way, their chances of death went down from 100 to 50. The first moth is no longer the only target, and the second moth will be the only target. If when he discovers how the first moth died, if the word spreads enough, then all the moths will only have a very small chance of being singled out of the crowd to become a meal. Safety in numbers then. That's why you come here and read these stories. Because by adding yourself to the lottery, you make it just a little safer for everyone else. We've always been big on working together as a species, which is why I'm glad you're still reading. You may be getting an idea of where I'm going with this. By now you're actually helping me a lot. But I need to explain just a little bit more before I can rest. I have been awake for the past few days because I don't think it's safe for me to fall asleep at any time of day. At night I felt an easy total darkness hold something lying in wait for me, and every one of my instincts tells me that it isn't safe. I sit before the light of my computer screen and I think. I run these little intellectual exercises to stay awakened. In the process I stumbled across an idea with more truth than I knew, and for the past few days I've been noticing some strange things. Fast blurs of motion in the side of my vision, too fast to follow. I don't think I'm meant to see them, and I think I know why I see them anyways. Any predator that becomes too efficient faces extinction. If the owl eats all the moths, it will starve hell. The only reason Ebola hasn't become a global threat is because it kills its victims too quickly for them to spread the virus very far. So our efficient predator no longer has a pool of prey to choose from. Anytime new prey is discovered, it is killed before it can spread the word to others. The predator is weak, and it's getting desperate. It can't keep up like it used to. but it is still very hungry. So I think now you can guess why I should apologize here. But I don't think I'm doing anything that I'm not meant to do. You can't develop many defenses against a truly efficient predator. Even though we've tried, we ray fast. We're strong and we're smart. The only thing the moth can do is increase the size of his flock as much as possible, and hope probability does not show him favor. And right now, I'm part of a very small flock, but I think by now, you know enough my chances should be going down now or going up, depending on how you look at it. I'm going to take my chances and get some sleep. It's getting bright outside, but if I rest up now, I can make it through another night safely. You shouldn't need to worry anyways, but if you see things in the corner of your eyes then, I'd suggest you try not to look at anything too bright. You don't want to be blinded by sunspots before you can spread the word and make the group a little bigger. See you in the evening, I hope. And just in case you get the chance, let me know what color it is. Written by King Ridley. The third story, Cimmerian. It was when I was young we lived in the country, near a massive wooded area, a forest that seemed to stretch beyond time. My father always told me never to venture into the forest, but that only made me want to explore it even more. Early one Sunday morning in April, the family awoke to find my sister Ellie missing. Immediately my father and other volunteers from the city set off into the woods to find her. The town waited anxiously for the search parties to return. 3 days passed, yet no one returned from the forest. After 2 weeks had gone by when a man appeared on the edge of town. He wore a brown hat and seemed to stare off into the distance. All I can remember is waking one morning from the sound of my mother screaming. The house was on fire, my mother, and I left the town and moved to the city. I never saw my sister or my father again for years later. When I was 22, my mother passed away. Years passed. I fell in love and moved to a small town in Washington State to work at a lumber mill. We had lived there 1 week, my wife and I, when it began to happen. The first thing that happened was that a strange old man who was living in the woods behind my home, and every time I saw him I would chase after him, but he would disappear. Another thing was that my wife would disappear for hours at a time, and when she returned, she claimed to have no idea where she had been. One day, I decided to stay home from work and follow her. At about 2:30 p.m., she left through our back door and down a dirt path leading to a small creek in the forest. She then crossed the creek onto a trail I had never seen before. It seemed like hours passed as we walked deeper and deeper into the forest. We came to a sharp turn in the road. As she went around the turn, so did I. But as I went around the corner, she was nowhere to be seen. It was as if she had just disappeared. I decided that she must have just sped up, and I continued along the path. After about 10 more minutes of walking, I came to a large rock archway that made a sort of shallow slanted cave. As I walked by the cave, I caught something at the corner of my eye. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. Standing, not 50 yards away through the trees, was the brown-hatted man, staring into the distance, just as I had seen him do many years before. Out of fear, I turned to run, but I tripped over a rock and fell into the stream. I then stood up and realized I had sprained my ankle. I hobbled back up to the shore, unaware of where I was exactly. I had lost the path, and I saw him again, the old man. He was on a rock ledge, staring at me. Then from behind him came a girl. She was young and beautiful, but as I stared into her eyes, I realized at once they were my sister's eyes. They both stood on the rock ledge, holding hands. Behind them, once again, I saw the brown-hatted man. The older man mouthed the word "run" to me, and then he and my sister jumped to what I presumed was their deaths. I turned and ran in the only clear direction. I then found the path and followed it back to my house. Once I arrived home, my wife was sitting in the living room sipping tea. When I told her what happened, she was in disbelief and had no memory of what had happened. We called the police and I brought them to the area where they had jumped, but there was nothing to see. This was 3 years ago to the day, and since that experience nothing strange has happened. I have to wonder if in the woods that day it was my sister and my father who jumped, but that almost seems impossible, doesn't it?